Thank you, everyone. Appreciate that. Can we please have the roll call?
At this time, I'm only asking those CAC members attending in person to respond by saying here when I call your name. I want to remind you to unmute your microphones by pushing the button on the base prior to responding. Ryan Rossi,
Here.
Lily Charlotte Landstrom, Aquanet Tyson Thomas,
Here.
Kate Layden,
Here.
James Garvin,
Here.
Paula Ryan is excused, Jim Knight,
Here.
Sammy Brown, BJ Mishra,
Here.
Myron Uman,
Here.
Brian Rosen, Greg Fagan,
Here.
James McCormick,
Here.
Albert Richwagon is excused, Win Dang. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Please take note that Lily Charlotte Landstrom did arrive.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any modifications to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right. If there are no changes to the minutes, are there any changes to the minutes from last meeting? Yes, Myron?
I'd just like to make a comment about the minutes. I know how difficult it is to write minutes, to keep them to indicate what is important that is said. And I had the privilege of writing the minutes for the board of directors of a not-for-profit in Washington, D.C. for 11 years, so I know how it isn't easy. But so that said, the minutes, I saw one place in the minutes today that said, so-and-so asked a question, period. There was no indication that the question was answered or what the answer to the question was. And it seems to me that if a member asks a question that is pertinent, then the response should be in the minutes. It's just a matter of courtesy to the member who asked the question. I imagine there are tens of thousands of people who read our minutes, so. But still, it's a courtesy to the members to respond to their questions in the minutes, if it's a pertinent question. And that's a judgment for the staff to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Myron.
Move approval.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Seconded.
Motion by Myron, seconded by VJ. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, it passes unanimously. Instructions on how to provide public comment are included in the agenda. Have there any general comments been received?
No, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. As a reminder for comments from the chair and members, as a reminder, or for action items on the agenda, there are conflict of interest forms available if needed. At this time, I want to invite the CAC members to comments on items not on the agenda. Yes, Myron.
I just like to note that, thank you. I just like to note that a former member of our committee, Richard Vasilati, won his election to the seat 2 and the Indian Trails Improvement District. A stepping stone. Service on this committee is a stepping stone to somewhere.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and Godspeed to him. Happy he won. Anyways, any other comments for items not on the agenda? No. All right. Moving on. I'd like to invite Andrew to provide an update on the CAC liaisons report. Andrew?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is provided to you as a handout, and then it'll be available on our website after the meeting. I'm just going to go through a few highlights on the liaison report. The first is the annual report. We handed it out to you all last meeting, but that's available on the website to review. It has a lot of great updates on products that were accomplished, ones that are moving forward, and everything else we accomplished in fiscal year 24. Congratulations to the Village of Wellington. They're actually our first city within Palm Beach County to adopt a Vision Zero action plan. It was adopted at their meeting on August 14th. So they're moving towards action of that now. And we have that available on our website at palmbeachepa.org/vision0. And then next is more related to grants for communities that are applying for this. But Safe Routes to Schools has a new grant cycle that's open, and they have AFDOT has a workshop that's required by ones who are applying on September 11th. The next ones are all related to upcoming sort of events occurring in September and in October. And that relates to first Parking Day, September 20th to 22nd. So at myparkingday.org, you can find out more information. But this is a global event where there's a repurposing of curbside parking spaces into public spaces, whether that's a small park, art, play, other types of recreational opportunities. It can be used for anything other than parking. And then next is Mobility Week for AFDOT. They have their statewide Mobility Week celebrating awareness of safe and multimodal transportation options. And that's going to be October 25th to November 2nd. They're going to have a lot of events on their website. And then we also participate as a TPA in events throughout the county on that. Safe Street Summit 2025. We're hosting it this year. This is the one that rotates between Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach. It's going to be downtown West Palm Beach is where we're going to host the conference. It's February 6th and 7th. And then if you'd like to learn more about it, you can visit safestreetsummits.org. And the next part is a series of transportation plans that are ongoing right now. It's our transportation plan, the Vision 2050. You all will be seeing the draft of that in October, and it'll be a final adoption in December. So we have information on our website right now for people to review with the draft projects. We'll be hosting some virtual and in-person workshops coming up in the next month. But you'll also see that formally in October as a committee, and also in December as a committee. And then there's the Regional Transportation Plan, which is going on in Southeast Florida. And then the AFDOT, the state is updating their Florida Transportation Plan. I think this is an update we provided last month, but they have dates here in South Florida, in Miami, and then also Port St. Lucie, where they're hosting some regional workshops, and they're also going to have a virtual open house on the 16th through 27th of September. That's all I have for you.
Thank you, Andrew. Are there any public comments on this item?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right. Do we have any committee members have any questions or comments on the liaison's report? Seeing none, we're moving on. Item 2A is a motion to recommend adoption of amendment number 1 to the TPA's fiscal year 25-29 Transportation Improvement Plan. I'd like to invite Andrew Euler, Deputy Director of Programs, to present on this item.
Great, thank you. So this is our only action item for today. This is one of those formal requirements. This is our first amendment to the Transportation Improvement Program for fiscal year 25 to 29. So that's the one we just adopted back in June. We're operating under it now the state fiscal year in July. And with this amendment, this same amendment occurs every year. And part of this is called the roll forward, and I'll explain what that means in a second. But it also includes a few other projects that we're adding as well on top of the roll forward. I say a few, it's like a couple hundred, but it is a very large packet. What was provided in your backup was the summary of it, but the full document is on the website with all the projects. And when is a TIP amendment needed? This particular one is because we're adding a lot of projects to the Transportation Improvement Program. And as a reminder, this only impacts the projects in the amendment. So all the ones you see in here, although there's a lot of them, it's only impacting those projects that we're adding in. So you're not adopting the whole TIP as a whole. So to summarize the products that are in this amendment, there's these ones that are called rolled forward products, and there's 188 of those. These are ones that there's phases that are not yet drawn down. The funding has not been drawn down from fiscal year 24. And those phases and the funding with that's remaining rolls to 2025. So this is the one that occurs every year throughout the state. Every MPO is doing this, who has these projects. We have 188 of those in Palm Beach County. Then there's, on top of that, there's also Palm Tran products that were rolled. We work with those with Palm Trend individually to make sure we get those correct because the work program on that side doesn't always get those correct. So we worked with them to make sure that they rolled over their funds that they haven't spent down either. And then there's general appropriations. So these are ones that go through the state legislature and were approved into the for funding through appropriations after you all saw the final tip document. So these are newer ones that we're also amending in, and that's 5 projects. And then a very large amount of the projects that we're adding are district-wide projects. It was noted that we were required to include these in our tip. These are FDOT District 4 products, so that encompasses from Indian River all the way down to Broward. These are the 501 products. They're mostly maybe some district-wide contracts. They could be operations and maintenance. They might also be just contingency line item boxes for funding. So there's a lot of projects in there. I think Tri-Rails, a lot of Tri-Rail products might be in there. So that is 501 products that we're adding into the tip. We're going to add that as a separate section that's called district-wide. And so they'll live in that section specifically. So they're sort of still within the document, but separated from the other sections of the tip that are for Palm Beach County. And the one I wanted to just briefly provide more background on is this one that occurs annually, and that is the roll forward. And so what it's doing is taking fiscal year 24 unspent funds, and they're moving to the new fiscal year of 2025. This sort of happens in bulk, right? So anything that's still in the system, they all roll together. So it's a large list of projects, over 100. And the reasoning for these could be a few. The first could be product delays, like maybe the contract hasn't gotten underway yet. Maybe they had to extend the time frame for the bids. But in any case, they may be delaying a phase. It could also be phases that are just unfinished at this time. So they're still working through that and haven't drawn all the funds down. And then lastly, and this is really with the unfinished phases as well, there's a lot of small amounts of money that's just not closed out on the product yet, right? So you might see just a couple dollars in there, $100 or less for projects that it's just still in the system and it hasn't been completed yet for that in the work program. So all those funds still rolled and they're still on that project. So probably not much is going to happen with that project anymore. It's just a little bit of money, but there are a lot of those that you'll see in the table. And so in the backup, the roll forward that was provided in your agenda, it's sorted from largest to smallest for those differences. And so when you get to about the second or third page, you're starting to see some pretty minuscule amounts of money being carried over compared to what the product originally cost. So that's all I have for you for the summary of what's in this amendment. We do have a new tip tool. It's still a work in progress, but on our website, you can click on it. And it's through a company called Eco Interactive. And in that, you're going to be able to sort by the projects and filter them. So you could filter in the future by your jurisdiction, so where you're located, and you can sort it by the construction year, who's doing the product, the lead agency. And we're also going to maintain the status of this. So all the things that we're trying to stay updated on products is going to start living in this database. And hopefully it remains interactive and up to date for you all to explore and use. The current amendment is also on this website. It's under the tab called Plan Revisions, and it's Amendment 1 for fiscal year 25 to 29. Right now, there's not a sort function on there, but you can see all the projects. And you can, I guess you can sort them, but you cannot filter them. And that's all I have for you. I can take any questions.
Do we have questions? Let's start with Jim.
Okay. Have that on? No, we don't have, there we go. Thank you. I was just curious, on that rollback, the first one on there for the Bright Line Station in Boca Raton, that 16,350,000, what exactly is that for?
It's a good question. We so the ones he's referring to is at the top of the list is the Bright Line Station for Boca Raton. Right, so a little over $16 million. We're still looking into that. It is the funding source is FRA, so we believe it's still that Chrissy grant that they received from the FRA. And from our indications, they might still be working on some expansion of Brightline Station in Boca. And we heard that from the city of Boca Raton at our last meeting this morning. But we're still trying to get verification on that, if it's really the full 16 million that's still not been drawn down.
And it's, the part of that, I assume, has been utilized for the parking garage and so forth there, or?
I am not certain on whether the funding that you're seeing in there for that 16 million, the Chrissy grant, was going towards the parking garage or not, or if that was a separate funding source. I know it was a combination of multiple funding sources, Brightline, the city, and this Chrissy grant. So I'm not certain if that 16 million is going to the parking garage or not.
If you could clarify that, just drop me a note. That'd be great. Just curious. Thank you.
Yep, and the TAC this morning was wondering the same, so.
Vijay, did you have a question? No, you're good? Okay. Myron?
Thank you. My question is about the General Appropriation Act projects. These are projects that were not in the normal process of planning that legislators put into legislation, which we used to call pork barrel, right? And the idea is just to put these things into the planning document. But they come from outside, if they're political. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. So I guess I would say that they are formalized pork barrel in a way. So it's both the House and the Senate, they put out these call for products in a way. And so you still submit paperwork regarding like what you're going to accomplish. But you are correct, it does not go through the formal transportation prioritization process by the MPO or FDOT.
And can you briefly describe each one of these? There are only 5 of them, right?
I can, yes. And it's a good point, and not to get too complicated on this, but I would say from a MPO perspective, TPA, and then also from FDOT especially, they're not always, this isn't the best process for them, because what we did earlier on when we had the Transportation Improvement Program, and you all adopted, right, recommend adopted that, and the board adopted this, the work program for the state is also adopted. And with that, they have set budget amounts that the state is allowed to allocate towards particular programs. When new products come in to this, through this process, they go past their appropriations, they go past the amount of money that they're authorized to spend down. But because the state legislature approved these, FDOT then has to go back and pull out other projects to make sure they reach this spending cap threshold, right? So that they're only approved to spend a certain amount. And so with these 5 products coming in, FDOT did have to do some reworking of projects within the current work program to either delay phases or do whatever. Now, these specific projects, yes, I can give me 1 second. The first one, and forgive me, I don't know all the details for all of them, but they are in the backup. The first one is the City of West Palm Beach traffic signal hardening. So this is at intersections downtown West Palm Beach to bring them up to current wind load standards. And then the next one is, it's called Western Indian Town Road Improvement. This is through Jupiter, but they're looking to put in a little bit like another through lane on Indian Town Road to relieve some congestion on there. Just east of I-95. And then there's another West Palm Beach product. This is signalization upgrades, and it's called Phase 1. Also through the city. And in this one, I don't have too much information, but I believe this is getting more into smart traffic signals for this product. So it says hardening program, but then also it's going to do some more traffic signal improvements for immediate congestion issues, traffic flow within downtown, train signal priority. And then we had one that's called Central Palm Beach County Infrastructure Improvements. and this is through Palm Beach County. And this looks like it's going to do stormwater runoff and pollutants. So, and it's in a certain neighborhood within Palm Beach County. So that's more related to stormwater. And then the last one is City of Green Acres. Chickasaw Road has, they're putting in some more multimodal facilities, I think sidewalks, and then also stormwater infrastructure on Chickasaw Road within the City of Green Acres. So Green Acres, one Palm Beach County, one Jupiter, and then two West Palm Beach.
And we don't know which projects got deferred or.
I'd have to look into detail. One of them, I think, was City of West Palm Beach, but I think they're already sort of they're already kind of delayed in their schedule on that one. So it was a pretty easy shift back 1 year. So they're going from 25 to 26 for the construction. The other ones, I don't recall which ones, but they do have to balance. The state as a whole has to rebalance their program when these come in.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions from the committee? Staff, are there any public comments on this?
No, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. Hearing no further discussion, I have a motion to approve. Motion by Wayne. Can I get a second?
Second?
Second by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Number 3, our first informational item of the day is Transportation Demand Management Programs. And I'd like to invite Brian Ruscher, Deputy Director of Multimodal, to present on this item, as well as Jonathan Hopkins of West Palm Beach Go and Jeremy Mullings of South Florida Commuter Services to make this presentation. Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the CAC. Hope you're all doing well, caffeinated this afternoon. I'm here to present to you today on the Transportation Demand Management Model Policy briefly, and then we'll have a follow-up presentation by our partners, as Chair Garvin just mentioned. So to dive into some of the work that we've been developing with both the City of West Palm Beach Go, and our South Florida partners is transportation demand management. And we're trying to come up with a model policy that agencies will be able to adopt and employers will be able to use to try to figure out what they can do to better manage congestion countywide. So we're going to dive into what transportation demand management really is. And focusing in on the graphic on the left, the Tennessee Department of Transportation has kind of provided this nice little wheel of options that are there. It's, public transportation purchases, it's carpooling, it's providing forms of transportation other than the single occupancy vehicle. It's about managing congestion. These Code of Federal Regulations actually requires us as a metropolitan planning organization to have a congestion management process. So I think it's important to understand that there's a technical requirement that we think about and that we're trying to promulgate into our documents as we start looking at transportation demand management. First and foremost in that process, you manage your growth and you can manage your roadways with better congestion pricing. We already see some of this with I-95, the Turnpike, and other limited access roadways that have a pricing feature to them now. There's also traffic operational improvements. And what that means is something like traffic signal upgrades with smarter technologies to manage the flow of traffic better, public transportation improvements, regional information technology system infrastructure. So I don't know if you've seen the Turnpike and 95 have been a little bit of a mess this week. That regional ITS infrastructure would actually get out ahead of people getting onto those roadways and divert them to alternative routes before they even enter the system. And then lastly, what the congestion management process derives from is system capacity only where necessary. So we take all of those other steps first before we start to think about widening our belts to try to beat obesity, which is kind of like what you see on the screen. When we make roads bigger, everybody think that it's going to be a godsend, but as in the comic, we have this, depiction of where we're widening the road, but is that really solving the issue? It's really just putting more people into that roadway. So that's why TDM, that's what TDM really is. And some of the things that we're working on is twofold. So first and foremost, On the left is what TDM is targeting. We're looking at visitors through either conference venues or hotels or other people who are kind of the temporary stay travelers. We're looking at employees and employers through either their office spaces or the services that they're providing. Events through major destination type events. Think of like the boat show. I'm not sure if any of you have tried to come downtown and park during the boat show, but if you've noticed parking management fees changed during that time, that's because there's a realization that there's an issue that, you know, people are trying to solve. Not just on the private side, but also on the public side too, with the city's lots. And then developers through capital improvements and development agreements. Now, at the foundation of what we're trying to target for these individual consumers or their businesses is first and foremost infrastructure. If we don't have the infrastructure, there's no building blocks to go up from there. If we don't have safe sidewalks and bike lanes, we're not going to be ready for a new generation of e-scooters and e-skateboards and all the other technology that's coming out that's providing new mobility. Beyond that, you can scale up and take into consideration parking management strategies such as parking cash out, programs where you're paying your employees to not drive to work. You could think about multimodal subsidies. So who here knows that the TPA actually will pay you to bike to work? It is a small benefit on a per mile basis, but we will pay you to bike to work. We will pay you to take transit to work through a reimbursement for your transit passes to try to beat congestion. Multiple of our employees take advantage of the transit passes. I would take advantage of the biking things, but I still have a little one at home. It's taking up a lot of my time. So it's a really great place to work, and it's a great way to beat congestion because you're not generating trips into a heavily congested area. Through services such as carpooling with Enterprise or otherwise that you might hear about in our partners, and then education, awareness, and promotion. So these are some of the strategies that we would take to target those certain use cases. And if you're interested in learning more about how you can get involved, I'd recommend reaching out to us. We have a great team working on this effort right now that's going to come up with policy guidance and an implementation guide for agencies to adopt here in Palm Beach County. So with that, if there's no questions, I'd like to hold them if possible. So I'd like to have West Palm Beach Go and Commuter Services of South Florida come and make their presentation. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. So what's really interesting, kind of something we're going to talk about at length today, is that if every employer and in downtown West Palm Beach, for example, or in the county did what the TPA did, we'd have less congestion. And in some places, that is a norm, that different types of incentives exist to reduce congestion when a bunch of employers work in concert. And so what we're actually going to talk about is the tools that help make that possible, because those tools are being built as we speak here right around us in West Palm Beach. So WPB Go, or the West Palm Beach Mobility Coalition, was created as this. Okay. Computer's moving slowly. Okay, so I've just jumped ahead now because it's too slow. Yeah. No, it's just slow. Okay, so this sort of collaborative is already being created around us as we speak due to the partnership between these organizations on the screen. What's novel about this collaboration, or maybe seeing all these logos on the same screen, is that these funders of WPB Go and people that meet regularly, is it's public and private, involves people, organizations from all different sectors of the economy. And really what they have done is recognized that trying to deal with congestion, any of them by themselves, is very, very difficult, right? No one entity can solve congestion issues. Even if you're FDOT, even if you're Palm Tran, or even if you're like related with a bunch of buildings in West Palm Beach. But when we work together, we have a much greater chance. And so the tools that we use for this come in two different types that involve acronyms that are a lot of fun. One is a Transportation Management Association. That's what WPB Go is. And both of these are defined in state statute. I think you can probably see those, the statutes written out in front of you, but a Transportation Management Association is really a public-private organization dedicated to solve transportation issues. And TMAs help implement TDM strategies. So TMAs, they're small. They typically operate on a $400,000 budget per year. They always have public and private partners, and they focus on how do you use incentives to change behavior and most TMAs are created in places where people are feeling the effects of congestion. Where do people feel the effects of congestion? In popular places where jobs are growing and populations are growing. Fundamentally, in places where people want to be. One other thing, and so what TMAs help implement are transportation demand management strategies. Brian alluded to these earlier, techniques that are used to increase the efficiency of our already existing infrastructure. You know, just imagine if you own a house and you have your in-laws coming over for a week. Do you immediately expand your house by another bedroom during that period of time? No, somebody sleeps on the couch and whatever. It's maybe not a perfect analogy, or somebody has to stay in a hotel. But we don't, you know, expanding the capacity all the time isn't always the most cost-effective answer. In fact, the US DOT has found that transportation demand management strategies cost 1/5 of what it takes to do capital improvements to solve capacity issues. And then these sorts of solutions, transportation demand management solutions, can be put into effect within the year. Whereas if you want to expand a road or build a train, it does take many years. And that's not to mean that you don't expand a road or add a train line or BRT lines. But this is a near-term approach that can help make us get the most out of our investments. So just fundamentally, it's about making our roads more efficient. And so this type of program, co-funded by all of our public and private partners, we're testing out these best practices that have been used across the country. I think one of the most notable examples of a program like this is City of Seattle. Amazon grew there. They added 100,000 jobs in 10 years, but they only added 6,000 cars used for commuting purposes. 100,000 jobs, 6,000 cars. And that really gets to the core of what TDM is and why we use it, that we are in a growing region, adding 1.5% people a year, and our roads are going to get busier. But what if we can convince 1 or 2% of people a year that are almost thinking about riding the bus or almost thinking about biking or walking? If we can just nudge them with incentives or employer-based policies, then we can keep up with that population growth without adding congestion. Some people do have to drive, and freight has to get places. So the folks that are just on the edge of maybe I'll do this, and especially for us, it's a good thing for affordability reasons. We have one of the highest housing plus transportation costs in the country. 60% of people's income are spent on those two things together. But if you can help a household get from 3 cars to 2 because somebody's able to ride an e-bike or take a bus or work from home, then that is like giving them a 17% pay boost, which is real money for people in this economy. So we are executing a thing called the Workplace Mobility Initiative in West Palm Beach, a pilot with 25 employers that we focus on recruiting those 25 employers that exist in the retail, hospitality, white collar office workers, city workers, county workers, the state's attorney's office, different departments, and in concert with those employers, reaching their 25 to 3,500 employees, which represents about 10% of the downtown workforce. And we're going to see, in partnership with those employers, if we provide free benefits for 1 to 3 months to try bike share, to ride the bus, to ride Tri-Rail, what happens? And then we'll measure it with before and after surveys that help us see, okay, what type of investments stick and have the most impact. So when the outcomes of those is like, our goal is to normalize employer engagement on mobility, help do education on about options, like the full array of options, and distribute those benefits, measure performance, like a company measures things for their P&L, and then encourage ongoing investments in things that work, that reduce congestion. Because raise your hand if you like congestion. Okay, so we're going to try and reduce that in a low-cost way, in a data-driven way. And so when we talk about incentives to reduce congestion, these include $20,000 worth of bus passes, and digitally uploading, connecting everybody so they can just get it on their phone because we add their email address and they can automatically open the Palm Tran app and get free bus passes, up to $70 over 3 months, free access to Bright Bike for 3 months. We're working on, but this hasn't been finalized, access to Tri-Rail passes for people who've never tried the train, access to Vanpool, which, not everybody's on a bus line and not everybody can walk to work, but Vanpool can work for most people if you have somebody else working in downtown on a similar schedule somewhere along your route. And also helping elevate already existing programs so people know about them. Emergency ride home, $5 off Uber, Lyft, and taxi rides to and from Tri-Rail, and then even a DDA-funded e-bike lottery that is $50,000 to $60,000 worth of subsidies, so like vouchers for $400 for most people, $800 for people who are qualify as low income to help people buy an e-bike. Other cities have found that about 90% of the people that win in one of these lotteries end up replacing their car commute and their car trips with a bike commute. And this is all based on geometry. If somebody's on a bike, they take up almost no road space, although sometimes the people in a car behind them think they do. People in a bus take about 5 square feet. If you're driving your own car, trailing and leading distances, you're taking up 500 square feet. So when things don't fit, if we can help people be more efficient, we can fit more people. So that's our pilot. The things we're going to measure is, how engaged are employers? What do the employees do? After the incentives go away, how many people stick with their new mode? And then, just measuring a bunch of different things about behavior change, and then be able to report out like these incentives work, other incentives didn't work, and then how much. And then from that, recommend future investments, like do we ever take on 25 more companies and explore it, or different things like that. Finally, just a timeline. The first companies are going to be onboarded into this program in October. They are knocking on our door saying, when can we begin? They're eager for it. Many employers that have experienced these sorts of programs elsewhere in the country, and some of the ones here, see this as a recruitment and retention tool. That our cost of living is one of the biggest barriers, and growing congestion is a big barrier to bringing more headquarters here of new companies or companies growing in place here, because the cost of living is inching up. In some cases here more than other places because people want to be here. Then the balance of the companies, nearly 20 companies, will be onboarded after January 1st. It's a 3-month program. We measure before and after and report out in Q2 of next year. So that is the update from us. And we're going to pass it on. Like, one of our key partners in all of this is South Florida Commuter Services, that help manage the regional benefits in all of this and have been critical to us creating this program. Jeremy.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. My name is Jeremy Mullings. I am the director of South Florida Commuter Services, which is the TDM program, Transportation Demand Management Program, for the Florida Department of Transportation. So I won't go back into defining TDM. I think Brian and John did kind of an excellent job. If you guys have questions afterwards, by all means, please ask. Many folks are surprised to hear that FDOT is so heavily invested in providing transportation options beyond drive-alone commuting. But so for the South Florida and Treasure Coast region, the program is called South Florida Commuter Services, and we partner with folks like the TMA here. So big picture, I'm not going to spend too much time here. I'm really here just supporting the TMA, but generally what South Florida Commuter Services does and how we allocate our resources, again, usually all state resources. The big top bar with the arrows basically shows generally we correspond directly with the public, the traveling public. That is our customer. Those are the consumers of the transportation system. We primarily do advertising, marketing, and planning that targets the end user, trying to expose the value in other modes of transportation to those folks. And it's not going to apply to every single person out there. So a part of what we do is also extensive market research in identifying those audiences with whom the message would resonate. Beneath that, you'll see we also partner with other entities. TMAs, as we're discussing today, primarily why I'm here to support the TMA, transportation providers like transit agencies and local governments. Many municipalities have their own transportation systems, biking, walking, and some version of community shuttles. We see on-demand microtransit is also gaining popularity, and we provide extensive support there. So as far as the TMA goes, WPB Go and their pilot, our involvement primarily involves our availing guaranteed ride home. That is for anyone who commutes via a mode outside of driving alone. If an emergency happens to take place and you need to leave work early that day, your carpool partner can't leave with you, you're stuck. How are you going to get home? You call us, we send you a free Uber. Or if you ride transit and you need to work late that day, that train is no longer running, that bus line is no longer running for the entirety of your commute. Again, you call us, we'll send you an Uber and it will get you home. We have folks who literally work at MIA and we get them home in Port St. Lucie. That's not a cheap trip. So what we're hoping to accomplish in the long term is that when you buy a transit pass, you're buying guaranteed ride home as a part of that product. So this is partially how we work with transit agencies as well. As John mentioned, their pilot is including $20,000 worth of free PalmTran passes. South Florida Commuter Services is funding the acquisition of those passes. We're working with Tri-Rail right now. We're trying to do something similar. Can't really announce it yet, not quite confirmed. To wrap, I will just summarize the relationship that we have with TMAs like this. And forgive me, y'all, I haven't perfected this comparison yet, but I'll try it out on you guys. So basically, as the state entity with a regional service area from Vero Beach all the way to Key West, we primarily focus on regional trips. So I like to look at what we do as, we're the manufacturer of a consumable good, and we deal directly to the public. The public can access our products and services through our website. But we also have relationships with retailers. Retailers have a very well-defined local market that they serve. So that's going to be your TMA. They want to sell our good just as much as we want them to sell our good. So, but they don't exclusively sell our good. They also sell other goods to those target markets. So when we really want them to push what we're pushing, we will incentivize them to really push our approach, our good, our service, and we'll also incentivize the customer to go to them and buy our good. So I hope that makes sense to you. I'd like to think it makes sense. If it doesn't, again, we're available for questions. But yeah, primarily we are here. We're as a part of the state of Florida DOT to support this particular TMA, and not because we like them as people, which we do, but statutorily we're obligated to support them. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brian, Jonathan, and Jeremy. Staff, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right. Do we have any committee members with any comments or questions? All right, Jim?
Just curious, can't have a hard time with a light here today. Just curious, so that situation where I'm working and the coworker can't leave, I have to leave early. How much notice do you need to give? I'm trying to figure out where you're deploying these drivers from or
Sure.
wherever else. And so,
And I'll tell you how the program is right now and what we're trying to become. What the program is as of today is you will have to register with us. Once you're going to be, let's say you're carpooling, register with us long before you have this unforeseen instance. So when you call us, we'll verify that this person is a carpooler. And I'll tell you right now, the verification process is you just telling us that you carpool, where you live and where you work. We're not making it overly burdensome for anybody. We're in the business of trying to promote carpooling, not accuse you of committing fraud. So you register with us a month, 6 months down the line. When you call us between 8 and 5, we will send you that Uber. Now, right now, we're in the process of testing the capability to go until midnight. So there are days where you're going to get us up until about midnight, and we're testing that through October. In October, we'll be able to be operating through midnight as a part of the program. The next step will be 24 hours.
just to follow up on that. So if I notify you at 3 o'clock, is it 2 hours later? Is it 3? I mean, is that Uber as quick as?
Again, so as long as you've been registered with us, you can call us the second you want that trip. Or let's say you're working right now and you realize, okay, I'm not going to get out of here until 9 o'clock tonight. You could call us and we will send you a link on text message. So you wouldn't even really have to have the Uber app. It's a normal SMS link. And when you're ready to summon that Uber, you select that link. We actually prefer that because if for some reason you're calling us at 9 o'clock and you can't get us for whatever the case may be, as long as you have that link in your phone, you summon that Uber when you're ready. But you'd have to call us earlier to send you that link.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Vijay.
Thanks for the information that you shared. There you go. Thank you. So interesting discussion that we had. I actually want to talk about a little bit back from when I started my career back in India. The employer who I was working for, he offered two options. You can come, obviously, your own vehicle to the work, or they actually provided a vehicle. One of the employee who was owning the vehicle, they were paying them, and as many people they can get, they can bring in, and they will. So they gave us an option. You can come that way, or you can bring your own vehicle. It's a 1 hour ride from where we were living. and pretty much everyone took the carpool or commute, whatever you want to call that. Everyone took that. And what my employer had also provided an option is like when we were at the work, they also had couple vehicle that can be used as a, again, community vehicle that can be, it's a company owned vehicle. You can go back and forth, whatever work you have to do in the middle of the day and can come back.
Okay.
So they did that. And believe me, nobody drove their own vehicle. Everybody was using that vehicle. So they were giving that option. And this is, I'm talking 20 years ago almost. Now we have Uber, we don't have to wait for anybody else to find another vehicle. So if this is something that can be more popularized, I should say, and you can go to more bigger employers and offer them that kind of incentive that, hey, identify who wants to do this, like one person around their community they can bring in. I think this is a great potential. I think you should advertise this more than the number of options you have right now. Thank you.
So to that point, programs like that are part of this. And what I think, where did you grow up in India or where did you work? Where?
India.
Like where in India? Like a big city, right?
No, it's a
Small
smaller
place?
town. Yes, it's
Yeah.
called Indore.
Okay.
Uh,
And so this program offers an array of options, but one includes a van pool concept, pretty much like that. Van pool here, like Enterprise runs it, but the driver is another employee. And one of the challenges to some of these programs is sometimes people aren't close to each other. And so as we, in an ideal world, all companies in downtown are participants in this program, but we seek to, succeed and fail on these different components small, learn from it, and then roll out the winning components, more broadly. But the commute with Enterprise component, our goal is to make sure that you as an employee, if there's somebody else at a different restaurant or at a different store working a 9 to 5 shift or a similar shift, you'd be able to ride with them no matter what your companies are. In most cases, they're not competitors or anything else like that. So we're going to be testing Vanpool, just like you mentioned. Some people, the bus is the right option. Other people, if they have a bike they can use, they'll bike. So we'll see what works best in this context. But these are best practices from around the country and from across the world. And then the last point that you said is that your employer was involved. Employers, if employers exert leadership on these sorts of things, if the CEO says, hey, we should do this thing, people will be about 60% compliant with trying different things out as part of the program. They might still drive, but they'd at least log their trips or whatever the case may be. If somebody just from HR sends it out, then it's like 10 to 20% compliance. So company leadership matters. And that's why we're going to the companies. Their existing leadership structures, they get people to do things. And this could reduce their parking costs. It can reduce congestion, which is a tax on everybody. So we are tapping into those leaders of those companies, some of which are going to be early adopters of some best practices that for many years, many other people will be following. So your lesson is a perfect lesson for this.
Thank you very much. Myron?
Thank you. It's very interesting presentations and a lot to think about. I did not know this was going on. But in terms of demand management, I'm aware of other communities where employers have gotten together and staggered working hours. Is that something that's practical in our community with the kinds of employers we have?
Some employers will do that. And that has been a successful tool, but usually only in combination with other tools. So there's certain people like restaurants are already staggered, for example, and we have tons of restaurants in downtown. Retail is already staggered. There's lots of retail in downtown. But for the office hours, we've seen a lot of shift to work from home and probably seen a high water mark on that during COVID. And people have realized like when we are in the office, even if it's only 2-3 days a week, it's really helpful for an office at the same time because they're forcing the people that are many of the companies that allow a hybrid work environment, they want their employees in at certain times together so they get the value of in-person engagement. But yes, staggered work hours is not a tool. It's not a silver bullet. Like we live in a place that's popular. We have to kind of like take an all of the above approach and help people try something that works for them because everybody's in a different situation. But staggered work hours is definitely part of it. And we do help coordinate that.
I got the impression from what your description, you were talking about intra-company staggered hours. I was thinking more in terms of intercompany, that is, company working hours are such and such, and this one's slightly different, so that the demand on transportation services are smoothed out.
Yep. And anything we can do to, including intercompany, whether it's collaboration on van pools or staggered work hours, we will do. And it's part of an intensive engagement we have with each company leadership to figure out with them what is within the scope of possibilities for them, what fits their culture and climate and leadership style, everything else like that. But yeah, definitely what you said is definitely a tool. And it's it's kind of a menu. And so we go to each employer and help them see what the menu of options are. So it's definitely something we'll be investigating with each of the companies and coming back with.
This is very
Yes.
encouraging. I hope you'll come back and present the results of the experiment to us.
Yeah, we promise the TPA is a key partner in all of this. And so any successes and failures that we have in all of this, we will report back so that we can all learn from them, because, you know, we're just one city in a county of 39. And so any lessons from this, you know, most ideally, we're not the only city that takes this sort of approach over the long term.
Great. Thank you. Win.
Um,
We hear you.
Okay. Can you elaborate a little bit on?
Sorry, Win.
Tri-Rail and.
Can you? Yeah, maybe try that one.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the Tri-Rail and Uber ride? And I think it's for the sake or for the benefit of the board itself on how that program works. Because I know with the recent Tri-Rail running express service to Miami, it's been very popular. So if you can expand a little bit on that.
Thanks, Wen. So this is really what we're creating is what's called a mobility wallet, but this is the low tech version since it's just a pilot. I can explain Tri-Rail and the connection. And if people wanted just a slightly deeper explanation, I can do all of them. But for Tri-Rail, we'll have a certain amount of money that we pay towards monthly passes. And then people to qualify for those monthly passes, they have to not already be a regular rider of Tri-Rail. And so, you know, in a company of 100 people, we'd imagine that there's a handful, probably not over a dozen, that might be candidates for that. Maybe it's more. And so those people that qualify would either get a month pass if they think they're going to ride it almost every day, or they can get a 12 ride pass if they think they're going to ride it various times over 3 months. The connections to Tri-Rail here in West Palm Beach, for example, you can walk, but if you're coming to the city course, like 20 minutes to 30 minutes, you can take bike share, which is existing there. Everybody will get free access to bike share instead of paying, you know, $4 to $6 and $48 an hour. And then also Tri-Rail already pays for a first last mile service where they subsidize up to $5 of your Uber or Lyft or taxi ride. They give you $60 of Uber a month, $60 of Lyft a month, and $60 of taxi rides a month. So that can cover your whole month with about $5. The average trip around here is probably 8 or 9, but it significantly reduces your costs there. That makes the train more accessible. For Palm Tran, it'll be like a $70 subsidy. You can use $70 in a month or a lesser amount over 3 months. And then, like we said, we'll help people access the e-bike lottery to get a subsidy there. And I think that's all of them.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, one thing is, years ago, I used to live in Atlanta, and the Georgia Department of Transportation paid me to ride MARTA to downtown Atlanta to go to work. And it was very interesting about it was not only did I make money after purchasing my fares, the amount of money I saved on parking fees, monthly subscription to parkings back at the time, and gas, the economics of it were greatly in the favor of those that use programs like this. So to see us investing in this is really awesome. And best of luck to you guys. I think hopefully there'll be some people that will realize that there are better ways to get around. So it's really great to see you and good work. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Myron, you good? Okay, great. All right. Yes, Kate.
I was just curious if you're familiar with the organization Jack the Bike Man at all?
What's it called?
Jack the Bike Man?
Yes, I think.
Oh, I don't,
I'm familiar with it. Volunteer-based donation organization. I'm not sure if they're still located just off of South Dixie or not, if they've moved already.
they were
But-
in the process of moving. I'm not sure either.
But yeah, I've donated bikes to them before. We actually have one we might need to donate that got donated to us. But why do you ask?
Oh, I was curious. I don't know if it would be a practical partnership to engage in, but they refurbish old bikes and get them in the hands of people who could use them specifically for employment reasons a lot of times.
Oh, okay.
I've worked with them in a professional capacity when I worked for another nonprofit. And they're just a really great organization to work with. So I think it would be, something to investigate.
I'll make sure that Jonathan goes from maybe knowing about them to knowing about them after this.
We'll
Thank
meet
you.
with them for program, yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Seeing no further comments. Thank you all very much, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we have one more informational item on the agenda. Speed management study update. The study will identify target speeds on the TPA's high injury network and provide speed mitigation strategies. I invite Valentina Fakus, pedestrian bicycle planner, and Spencer Maddox, engineer with Kittleson and Associates, to present on this item. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Valentina Fakus. I'm the TPA's pedestrian bicycle coordinator for the TPA, and I am joined here by our consultant team, Spencer Maddox, to go over some of the progress for our speed management study that we've been working on since April of this year. So first things first, why are we conducting this study in the first place? Sorry. So the TPA adopted a Vision Zero action plan back in 2019 and adopted that plan in 2021 with a goal of completely eliminating all of our traffic-related fatalities and serious injuries. And within that plan, we have a series and a list of cultural, policy, and funding-related actions to get us to that Vision Zero goal. And one of those goals, or one of those actions, is policy action 1.3, which calls to identify the appropriate target speeds on all of our high crash corridors. So conducting the speed management study would advance that policy action 1.3. Another reason is to improve human behavior and manage speeding. So on the left side of the screen there, I am showing a graphic of the field of vision at 15 miles per hour versus 30 to 40 miles per hour. So as you can see there, the field of vision at 15 miles per hour, you can actually see the entirety of the road along as, in addition to the pedestrians that are walking alongside the sidewalks of the road. And you are just able to see the entire road and the surroundings of it. In comparison to the field of vision at 30 to 40 miles per hour, you're not able to see the pedestrians walking on the side of the road, and you're not even able to see the entirety of the road, just a really small amount. So it's just another point to see that as the field of vision increases, speed decreases, and as the field of vision decreases, it is harder to react to any potential hazards that are out there. We're also conducting this study to take accountability. So we found that speeding and aggressive driving accounted for approximately 17% of traffic-related deaths from 2017 to 2023 in Palm Beach County. That's a really large number and a lot of people dying on our roads. So it's really about taking accountability and taking action all together with a safe system approach. In addition to that, I'm also showing a graphic there that shows if a person is hit by a vehicle traveling at 20 miles per hour, 9 out of 10 pedestrians will have a probability of surviving. Whereas if you increase that speed 20 miles per hour more at 40 miles per hour, only 1 out of 10 pedestrians will have a possibility of surviving. So it's good to keep in mind that the risk of injury and death increases as speed increases. So a little bit more about the study of what the study entails and the timeline for this. So again, we started the study April of this year. Throughout the summer, May through August, we were working on coordinating with FDOT and Palm Beach County, since they are one of the major roadway owners for the roads that we were looking at. And we have also been developing the target speed methodology as well as any other items related to the study. And we are expecting to have this study completed by the end of this month. So please look out for that. So the study will be identifying the appropriate target speeds for all of our high injury network corridors, which are actually the most dangerous roads in Palm Beach County, and coming up with countermeasures and strategies, taking the context into account and any multimodal volumes. We will also be using national best practice and guidance for speed setting. So we're looking at the federal government, Federal Highway Administration and the Florida Department of Transportation for guidance. And we are also taking inspiration from our partners such as Metroplan Orlando and Hillsborough TPO as inspiration since they have done similar efforts. We are also applying a safe system approach, which calls to plan for and design for all of our roadway users. However, at the TPA, we will be prioritizing vulnerable road users. And the safe system approach, we are being consistent with the Federal Highway Administration as well as the Florida Department of Transportation, as they have recognized and adopted this approach for addressing traffic safety. So with that, I will hand it over to Spencer to go over the remaining of the presentation.
Thank you, Valentina. So we're talking a lot about speed today, and there's a lot of different speeds out there. And so Valentina has mentioned target speed, and that may be the first time some of you are hearing that term. And so what is target speed? That's the highest speed that the roadway should operate given the unique context of the road, the multimodal characteristics and users for everyone to be able to use that road safely. So it is a goal, but it is an achievable goal. And so that's what the target speed study is doing, is defining the appropriate speeds for these roadways. The design speed, that's the roadway, which, that's the speed which the roadway's been designed at. It sets the geometric features of the roadway. So things such as lane width, clear zone, that's, the critical speed in order to set all of those roadway characteristics. Posted speed is identified by the speed zoning manual in Florida. Traditionally, historically, the common practice has been that the design speed is 5 to 10 miles per hour over the posted speed for new roadway construction. That's something that we're actively trying. The industry is actively trying to change to promote safer speeds. And historically and traditionally, the posted speed is also associated with the operating speed of the roadway, which is the free flow speed or the 85th percentile speed. And so we, with the TPA, have developed a target speed methodology that's data-driven, using industry best practices that Valentina mentioned from FHWA, from FDOT, from other local agencies. And we've developed a point-based approach. We applied the target speed methodology, and so we've identified target speeds on all federal aid roadways, not on a state road. And then we included, in addition to all non-state roads, we included state roads, county roads, and municipal roads that were identified on the TPA's high injury network. Again, this methodology emphasizes the most vulnerable roadway users, going back to the Vision Zero goal to eliminate fatal and serious injuries. And so some of the data that we use to develop this study includes roadway characteristic information, such as the functional classification of the road, the context classification of the road, the roadway ownership. And we use those characteristics to define the appropriate target speed ranges that each segment of the network would have. In addition, we use the safety data like the TPA's high energy network and FDOT's vulnerable roadway user network and incorporated that. Not only did we look at historical crash data, but also thinking through a proactive safe systems approach, we incorporated multimodal data such as pedestrian and bicycle activity, in addition to stop level transit ridership from PalmTran and the level of the TPA's level of traffic stress. And lastly, we also considered geometric data such as the number of lanes. A 2-lane facility is completely different than a 6-lane facility when you're thinking about setting achievable target speeds. And so we wanted to consider that as well. And so what we did was we, assigned points using all of these different data sets. And so the network scored from 1 point to 13 points. And so 1 would be on the higher end of the range and 13 would be on the lower end of the range. And so this was the outcome of the draft target speed results and application of the methodology that I just walked over. The graph on the left just shows the distribution of target speeds by road type and ownership. And what you can see is the highest frequency of target speeds is in that 30 mile per hour range. And so really emphasizing speeds on the lower end of the spectrum. On the right, you can see just a map of the entire network that we analyzed. Again, there's a lot of green in there, so speeds of 30 mile per hour and lower. And so we use these target speeds to, again, identify and prioritize corridors, including some additional operating speed data. And so taking those target speeds, we also for the HIN, the high energy network, we used RIDIS here to gather operating speed data, which included the 85th percentile speed, the median speed, and the average speed. For the entire study network, we compared the target speed and the posted speed, which is what you're seeing on that map to the right. And so areas in red are areas where the existing posted speed exceeds the target speed by 15 mile per hour or higher. And so what we're saying there is there's the existing posted speed, there's a large difference with the aspirational target speed based on our methodology. Additionally, for the high energy network, like I mentioned, we did the same comparison to identify areas where there were existing speeding concerns. So where the operating speed, the 85th median average speeds were higher than the posted speed. And we did that to identify, priority speed management corridors. And so like I mentioned, what we did to identify these corridors was we included all of the analysis that we previously did. So looking at locations where there are existing speeding concerns, also looking at locations that score high on the TPA's traditionally underserved index. That data set includes metrics such as zero car households, percentage youth populations, percentage elderly. So these people potentially are at a greater likelihood to walk or bike and cross the roadway, and potentially are at a greater exposure risk to be hit by a vehicle. We also wanted to emphasize areas where the existing posted speed had a large difference to the target speed that we assigned to the roadway, and then also considered just the total score of each segment and wanted to emphasize segments that scored higher using our methodology, which would recommend a lower target speed. And so the next steps in wrapping up this study is to finalize those priority speed management corridors, and then also identify countermeasures and strategies to achieve the target speed. And so On the right are just, some sample strategies and countermeasures from NACDO. They're by no means intended to be comprehensive. And what we intend this to be is kind of a toolkit. So we're going to group these corridors together based on similar attributes such as number of lanes, and suggest potentially speed management countermeasures that could be implemented in the short term, midterm, long term, and then complete the final report. And with that, I'll thank you for your time, and I'll open up the floor to questions.
Staff, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, let's go with Lily.
I do get to talk. Thank you guys so much for the presentation. I was just wondering, you mentioned kind of the outreach for the high injury roads. I know TPA has a pretty active Instagram presence. There's this account called Only in Palm Beach. And a lot of the content on it is car crashes and that kind of stuff in the county. Is there any kind of, I guess, ideas about outreach in that way? I know vulnerable populations are a big thing, but also young people like to drive fast, and I know we we crash our cars a lot. So just kind of any commentary on that.
No, appreciate the question. I think education is an important piece of the puzzle when educating, anyone of risky behavior. Most likely, to be honest, the most dangerous thing that you're going to do today is enter a vehicle. And so just thinking through how can we, incorporate that? How can we use social media to get that awareness out there? I think that's certainly one piece of the puzzle. I don't know, Brian, Valentina.
We have not gone down that road quite yet in terms of, I think, that level of social media engagement. I'm aware of said Instagram account. And while it is kind of funny to have, stuff to laugh at from time to time, we do try to take it and put it into generally a more positive and how do we encourage safe behavior light. And I think that some of the agencies like Tri-Rail and others have started engaging with influencers and things like that to get more into the social media sphere. We don't use TikTok. We have access to an Instagram, we have access to a Facebook, but we haven't gone down that road quite yet. But I could see it happening in the future. It's just, it's going to take us time to get to that place, and we are government, so we have to also kind of abide by the rules and how we're going to go about marketing and promoting and how we use our dollars too. That's not exactly something we've prioritized yet, but it's on our radar.
Thank you. Wen.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. And I think, the board, we support so much in speed reduction because it is a #1 priority and a topic discussions that is frequent. I do have a question in reference to your presentation, especially the tool set that you are looking to apply on as a speed management strategy, especially for these are arterial roads and there are state and county roads. I know the FDOT is actually very open in this particular district to apply some, vertical deflection or even raised intersections on US 1. I'm very curious to see how that tool set, especially with roundabout chicanes and all of that, would apply on a county road, because we definitely understand the challenge in, 7 lanes divided. How would I guess I'm curious is what was our coordination has been, and can you go into a little more specific on what that strategy would be?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Wen. So we have been working with the county. Currently, we worked with the county to coordinate some of the initial development of the study, but that is something that we will be bringing up to them once we have received that draft, because we have not received that information yet. We're still developing that. But again, because we don't own or operate, that is something that we will be working with all roadway owners. So
Yeah, and thank you. And I know, Jessica, you know, she has championed, Vision Zero for many years here. And, I know the county is operating all their traffic signal and whether if they're applying the flashing yellow, left turn arrows or not, but that's only a small subset. I do think that, you know, when we look at other states like California that has been, putting in their legislature for, speed management cameras, I'm just curious if that even is a topic of discussion for, especially for this county, because it is very effective.
I know that PBSO has been interested in speed cameras. I don't believe we have spoken to the county about automated enforcement yet, but that is something that we'll consider when we're developing the study and getting that coordination.
Thank you.
All right. I just have just a little clarity. So when this study is finished and there's these recommendations on this roadway or this roadway to adjust speeds, is there any obligation by any of our municipalities or so forth to actually execute that change?
Yeah, that's a great question, James. So again, we don't own or operate, so this is just a study.
Sure.
So once this is done, you know, we are continuously coordinating with all the roadway owners, but once this is done, then we will be presenting this to all the roadway owners to look at next steps. So regardless of what the outcome is, they still, you know, the roadway owner still has to do a traffic study to see if even changing the posted speed is viable. So that's sort of how the process goes.
And the study will also include a recommendation on the exact toolkit to use. Yeah, but I know that go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, no, hold on, they have to do a separate traffic study. But if you follow the FDOT context classification, if it's within a CZ45, because you know, half of the crashes are occurring like East I-95 military. If you apply the context classification, especially on those roadways itself, why is there another study that should be done? This is the study already. You have valuable data. These are cell phone data. These data came from the traffic signals and that the state has. So why are we, why is that even a recommendation that they have to do another traffic study? If it's a community, you know, initiative it's a target speed. We're setting a target speed of, and I see on the map, you know, I fully support it, 30, 35 miles per hour. We need those target speed. So we have to go and do another traffic study.
The short answer is yes. And that's I mean, that's just the way that the speed zoning manual is. That sets the posted speed within the state of Florida. So our study is not intended to say this is the target speed, go out and change just, you know, solely the posted speed. You know, it's going to take a lot to get there. And so it's going to take, you know, time, potentially multiple projects and countermeasures to actually get to be able to lower that speed to the target speed, especially in areas when, you know, there's existing differences of 10 plus miles per hour. I would just note that the speed zoning manual, I believe, is undergoing an update that may provide flexibility to use the 50th percentile speed in certain contexts. But that update is still pending and believe needs to go through statutes. So it's the guidance and the statutes are changing. And this is just one step in that direction.
When it reminds me of an older saying, you know, measure twice, cut once. So perhaps there's something to be said for validating. But anyways, any other questions from anyone? Any other comments?
Elaborate a
Yeah,
little
please.
further. That is a pretty standard practice for any documents that right-of-way jurisdictional owners have. So that's applied at the county level. Even when we recommend projects at city levels, there's still due diligence that we still have to go through. So yes, it's unfortunate that it does take multiple iterations, as Spencer alluded to, but every time we've submitted a, you know, traffic study, corridor study, master plan, otherwise, it always seems to get another level of review. And that's just a practice that all the agencies have adopted. And so it's frustrating because it does delay projects in some instances and makes them take longer to get to pavement. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Any other comments? Myron?
Just, you mentioned that there is a manual I assume this is written by the state.
Correct. The speed zoning manual is written by the state.
And is this, and I assume that there are national guidance for these sorts of things? That there's consistency of some kind?
Yes, FHWA does publish guidance, correct.
I will also add to that, Myron. So we all have to follow what is on the MUTCD, which, as you all may or may not know, the MUTCD was adopted to potentially use an alternative for setting those speed limits. So the practice that has been done historically was using the 85th percentile. Now the currently nationally adopted MUTCD looks at potentially not using the 85th percentile for all roads. But, you know, FDOT has not adopted the new MUTCD yet. So until that is not adopted, then we can't, do what's not on the current policy, on the current adopted policy. So.
And just as a matter of personal curiosity, I used to supervise the work of the Transportation Research Board in Washington. And they produce studies of this kind. Are there any current studies from the TRB that you're using to guide your work? Just personal curiosity. I haven't been there for 20 years, so.
Yeah, no, Myron, that's a great question. So we are actually taking guidance from FHWA. So they did publish a speed management, using a safe system approach for speed management. So we're using that guidance. For TRB, I'm not exactly sure if they have published any certain documents, but maybe Jessica can speak to that, or Spencer, since they've been more involved on that. But off the top of my head, I can't think of any, but I'll be glad and more than happy to follow up with you on that.
And we also have members of our firm that are actively in the design committees and things like that. And, you know, the METCD, the NC TUD and TRB, that for, you know, any innovative design standards and best practices, and we can connect you with them as well.
All right, thank you very much. Seeing no further comments. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it, Valentin.
Thank you.
All right, items 4A through 4D are information only. There will be no staff presentations unless requested by a committee member. Anybody want to hear anything? No? All right, good. Staff, are there any public comments on those items?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, I just want to remind everybody that our next CAC meeting is scheduled for October 2nd, 2024. At this time, our meeting is adjourned.